Good afternoon. Today's October 25th, 2024, Friday, it's the end of the week. Our goal here is to review the market generated information in a holistic fashion. We're intimately following the auction's narrative for both ES and NQ. If we have time, we'll theorize and add additional commentary towards the end. Okay, perfect. So, today's Friday. Again, it's the end of the week. We have had a interesting week. Of course, we'll look at the weekly candle. You can see how we close. And Friday was a bit exaggerated, that candle. But again, this all started with a bit of a sell-off. We have Friday, Thursday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Monday. So again, Monday was just an inside bar of the Thursday's look above and fell back into the range. As we've been drifting lower highs and lower lows for each session, we had an inside bar yesterday. Really, the goal for buyers was to make a higher high and a higher low. As scary as this looks, buyers completed their job. Higher high, higher low. Even broke above the Wednesday's high. So mission accomplished. For the NQ, same situation. We've been hinting at the relative strength from the NQ, and we can see it here as well. Higher high, higher low as well. Um, Completely pierced through this whole bit of this range, though it is a look above and a fail. Um, they accomplished their goal for the buyers. So again, buyers still have control on the highest time frame and the intermediate, and then the bears have control more of the daily and more of the sentiment to a degree. On the actual docket today, we had a bit of light data. We had our durable goods and then our consumer sentiment with a Fed speaker at the 8 o'clock hour as well. Nothing real big for the earnings. It'll be revving up for sure next week. So let's look and see how we perform today for the NASDAQ. 340 points of range. The volume being another high volume day, just like Wednesday, which was the sell off, and then the spike up, and then the pushback lower. Volume wasn't too crazy to start our shift, to start the day, but it definitely picked up and stayed consistent. Double distribution, not much trading near the lows for the NQ. High volume, and the sellers finished on a high note. So really good position. Actually, we can just leave our arrows there. Not only for both of these distributions, you have sellers that have won these battles and have favorable position. So now, if we are back into this range, sellers, all this work, they may have an opportunity to push prices lower. At least that's what they're gunning for, to get back to this 20K 200s, which is about down here where this VPOC is for that Thursday sell-off day. So interesting look for the Nasdaq. And you can see how much, at least relative strength they had, especially when you look at the S&P 500. We don't really get that same kind of vibes here. We even close red, multi-distributed, VPOC at the lows. The buyer delta was positive in the morning and pushing with the open drive, which we'll look at shortly. And they got swallowed and obliterated for the ES. So solid job for the sellers. S&P is listed as minus 3 basis points, essentially unchanged. Technology being up. Anyway, who is actually performing well today? Top five. Okay. So top five did well. Solid job there. And then financials was doing well initially. Not well, but they were doing, okay. And then they really started to take a hit near the highs. So it's very interesting to see them down. with the top 5, top 10 all negative. Consumer staples as well. I find it interesting that money is pushed towards technology, discretionary and services, communications rather, opposed to finances, healthcare, and consumer staples. So just an interesting flip here. If we had some kind of like market internals, we may have a little more insight. We do have a chart book for it, but it's something I'll look on my own time to make sure I'm not giving out incorrect information. But okay. So we understand where we were on the with the delta. Let's actually look at the market profile. Bear with me. We'll go back to the NQ. Again, we have our daily, weekly, monthly, and then the composite back to April. If we zoom in, we can see price drifted from the VPOC from yesterday, squeezed above all kind of singles, peaked, and you can see where we peaked at is near some singles which are unlabeled, so shame on me. So some singles in the past, we kind of break through those for a partial amount, come back into this range, unable to extend higher, begin to eat through these singles. As the singles are eaten and completely done, we're not able to push back up into the range that we came from, the 20K 650s, 640s, 630s area. And then we find our way drifting back into that former resistance zone. Potentially, it'll be turning into support, which is just a high. It's the monthly value area high. So we broke through, and then we pull back to the value area high for the week and for the month. So again, very bullish, very bullish for the NQ. So, good job. A round of applause. S&P 500. Same situation for them. We had our. Oh, this is much better. We had our session for this week. Again, just lower highs and lower lows. And we have our monthly composite. Notice the VPOC for the week is near the 5850s. As we push up and start the session, we push through the value area high for the week. Run into, it's just a lot of congestion up here. You would like to see them kind of push through. And unfortunately, they failed. But I think what's more important here was just how technology failed to push higher through their singles. So I'm less focused on where the S&P 500 was and more of where the NASDAQ failed in their situation. But I still do recognize that they pushed up to the 5900s. Yeah, the 5900s, and then completely reverted back lower, back to their former support, which the VPOC of this day ended at the VPOC of the week. So we're back home. Yeah, we're back home. And then if you put that of this week's VPOC, what's cool? You're essentially just filling in these gaps. You're filling in these gaps here from the months. So it makes sense for us to kind of push up, fail, and then slice back through. So I'm not going to save this, but this is the weekly candle, the weekly composite into the monthly candle. And you can see this is much more balanced now. And then we'll take another look at the NASDAQ again. Just how they pushed up to those singles. Again, it was like somewhere down here. So push into those, and then they just couldn't get back up. If tech was the only reason that we were even up in the first place. So tech failed here. And this is when financials began to start filling as well. So this was just in hindsight, this was just a lot of confluence for that sell-off. But okay, we won't spend too much time on this. So again, this is the same thing for the Nasdaq. This is just what we were looking at. Just 138-minute candles, complete push up. We ended up piercing those singles areas, stopping out everyone in this area, any kind of shorts, and then it's falling back into the balance range. Full body candles. Even more so for the S&P 500, except lower highs for this whole week. For the session for the S&P 500 with the candles, you can see buyers pushing 7,100 max, but then we finished at 1,200. So you would say like, like what's that's just a bit strange. Completely pushed through, pause, and then just an acceleration and liquidation lower, filling in the gap from the prior day, and just balancing and closing there for the most part. I don't think this is considered a trend day, but definitely a reversal. NQ is much stronger. Essentially, this looked like a flag for the longest, consolidating, broke through, and found continuation lower. And then essentially just bear flag for the day. So again, just a really nice staircase down. Yeah, just solid job. Same thing with the delta. Sellers pushed in, buyers tried to fight back, got smoked. Again, these days were gap ups. At least for the NQ, right? Yeah, this was a gap up. So we trade lower. We'll look at the S&P 500. So the S&P 500 again, we have our overnight. Excuse me, let's go back to Wednesday. Wednesday we had the liquidation move, and then the drift up for Wednesday night. Thursday we had, okay, we're opening near these highs. We're looking for some kind of move upwards, but we're not getting that move upwards. End up liquidating lower, bear flagging, breaking lower, ideally making a higher low. Pushed up back into this range, balancing out, push through that range again, balancing out, pushing through that range, not balancing, just complete upside. And this is where we start our session. So like, okay, cool. So we have this kind of thing going on. Um, so we're essentially in this kind of pattern here, and then we start our session, boom, like this. You know, So this is extremely bullish in real time. This is just like, oh my God, buy, 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 Jim Cramer kind of shit. And it's just really bullish. It's just really bullish. Um, it looks like these prices were being accepted. Push, flag. So it's push, flag, push, flag, push, flag, push, no flag, break a structure. Okay. Break a structure. And then we're just drifting lower below this 5 smoothing average. As soon as we look above, we get engulfed. As soon as we look above, just kind of balancing back through the IB mid, engulfed, and then another trend leg down. And then essentially just bear flag for the remainder of the session. I think what's important is giving the fact that the overnight high was all the way up here and the overnight low was 30 points lower. The fact that we opened near the overnight high, pushed through it, and started creating structure above. This is bullish, right? We pushed through with the 7 a.m. data, more consolidation. Okay, so a slight fail. I think what's interesting is that we pushed through, we made our range from our low to our high for our initial balance. Once we get to the initial balance, high and we break through, we're immediately retesting it. Okay, cool. We get a good response. That makes sense. We push through, no new high, and we're just lower highs and lower lows the whole time. Engulf under the 5 smoothing average, and then we retest this IB high. Okay, so as we're at this IB high, we are having no upside and more downside. We're staying below the 5 smoothing average. We are sticking to the initial balance high, sticking to the VWAP. You would expect an impulse higher, but it never happens. A slow grind. And this slow grind happens from 806. Yeah, so for about 15 minutes. So about 15 minutes, this just grinded slowly and it just really ate up this candle. It was accepted, slight panic, stops, down to the full session VWAP into the midpoint. No real support, no break of structure, new low created, and now we're back at the overnight high. If we're having this big bullish overnight session and big overnight drive, excuse me, and a big overnight drive like this, then there's no reason when we come back to here, why there should be an automatic buy for the most part. You should see some sort of reaction, and we try it. We push back up into the IB mid, we get engulfed, and we're back at the overnight high. If these prices are considered cheap, we shouldn't see ourselves revisiting this area multiple times. And we're just sitting here for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, however long this is, trading back and forth between the initial balance mid and then the overnight high. Once we break this overnight high and then we break this open drive low, there's no sort of support here at all. So, okay, at this point, we're headed near the overnight low. Once we get to the overnight low, we had the stops ran and then immediate engulfing. And then even this couldn't stay above this 5 smoothing average, ended up getting engulfed. So just really interesting. I really wanted to break that down for myself and kind of talk that through, just so I have a little better context to what we're looking at. And then just looking at it from the without the overnight session, big gap up. You would assume this gap up and push through would make sense. But once we pushed our highs and we failed, I can understand getting stopped out here for the shorts. But up here, definitely another opportunity. So I mean, my trades, I definitely traded in this in real time and here. But definitely we need to be able to add once we see that we're sticking through these overnight highs and be ready to liquidate once we have some closes above this range. And then there's a grind lower. Staying below the 5 smoothing average was made sense. Any look aboves were failing. And then on the first real attempt, you can have the VWAP being like the last line of defense. And then just really see if we have more legs under this 5 smoothing average. The NQ is just a little bit different. This is the reason that I was even looking short in the first place. Same drift up, so we won't go into that whole process. But these guys were coiling and building above the prior day's IB high, pushing through. Again, big Tesla earnings, completely shredding through this thin air space, headed into this high volume node that we have for the month. We have our open drive higher, breaking through the overnight high, pushing. Clearly, this is an open drive. So we were asked ourselves, this bracket finished an open drive the whole way through. Okay, so instead of us just saying it's an open drive, it's an open drive where? Where's price headed? Luckily, we've been doing our price maps. They're heading to some former singles. As we're heading into these singles with the data, we push through and immediately back off. Okay, we try once more and then we back off again. As soon as we start seeing this behavior and we're sticking to these levels, these DGPs, we seriously need to be looking for potential entries into this section. Absolutely. So again, same concept as earlier. Their situation was a little different. They stuck to their VWAP. They had their same legs under the 5 smoothing average. No real support at the initial balance mid or the VWAP for the full session. End up heading down to their, oops, ended up going from the initial balance mid to the low of the open. And I was looking at this in real time as well. You can definitely could have got in here once we broke this overnight low. There was a smaller candle, if I recall. Yeah, there was a smaller candle here. So once we broke that overnight low, I mean, I think this, I mean, excuse me, the open low, the RTH low rather. I don't see why, come in here at the 20K, let's call it 500 if you're late, and then having it stop down here at the 83. You definitely would imagine the NQ, who has been much sturdier throughout the session, will have some sort of response, especially since the S&P 500 was responding there as well. That was their overnight low, opposed to the NQ's RTH low. So once you got responses on both, definitely looking for a scalpy type long in this situation here. Okay, so we'll go ahead and wrap it up there. How well job did the buyers do? We'll give the NQ a 5 or 6. I'm still gonna give them a 5 or 6. They're doing really well. I don't care what anybody says. I like the way they moved today. I like to push through the singles. It's just like a high water jump mark, and then they close. Um, they close somewhere within their DGPs, within the RTH range. It's still extremely weak for sure. The S&P 500, I'm not really sure what to say about them, to be honest. But we'll give them probably like a 2 or 3. And mainly that was due to finances. I don't have a chart of the XLF, but um, yeah, I just thought that was interesting. All right, and I think we're gonna go ahead and drop it there. Earnings, I should do like a quick note for earnings. Earnings is gonna be wild next week, so let's um let's get a good weekend. It's gonna be rough, not only with the earnings, but we have data. We have data. Nothing on Monday. Tuesday, we have job opening, consumer confidence, and the Schiller as well. We have the ADP, the GDP, some of these advanced numbers, independent home sales, the PCE, jobless claims, Chicago PMI, and we have the non-farm payrolls, more PMIs, construction spending, and the ISM manufacturing. So next week is going to be wild. Yeah, take care of yourself.